My name is Nelly Lecter. I am the Dean of the Graduate School of Education at Touro University in New York City. My colleague,
Jill Ordonance, I'm Chair of Undergraduate Education.
yes, at Touro there's two units. One is undergrad and one is grad. We don't have the School of Education, but we're best friends.
Yes.
And colleagues, as you can see, I wanted to thank everyone in the hub. It's thanks to them that we're here today. I first got in touch with the hub as I was just brand new dean 3 years ago, I believe, and they did a presentation at the Nayanti conference in October in Saratoga Springs about apprenticeships, and we attended, and we said we need to get on that bus. And we did. So we're here today to share our experiences, talk a little bit about us, what have we learned from this whole process so far, gaps and things that are pain points, and then hear from you. Hopefully, we do have slides to share information, but hopefully we'll be hearing from you. Any question, comment that you want to make, just raise your hand. It's okay if it's in the middle of our slides. Because sometimes it's more pertinent in the moment, right? So let's just get right into it. Let's see. Where's the best way to do this?
And I will add, we hope to
Okay.
learn from you as well. So if you have pointers along the way, we're open to it.
Yeah, well, because the whole process of registered residency and apprenticeship design and implementation is not linear. And there are definitely things that we will do differently today from in the beginning, but sometimes that's just the way things work out in the end, and we learn from them. So just about the Touro Graduate School of Education, we are, I believe we're still the largest provider of special education teachers in New York City. At any point in time in the year, we have about 2,500 students enrolled. We do about 1,000 placements every year. Every year for student teaching in the regular traditional program. We are in the 5 boroughs, and I am personally very proud of that. Traditionally, we were a lot in Brooklyn, Staten Island, Manhattan, but we recently started also having a strong presence in the Bronx, and we're in the 5 boroughs. So that is relevant to the conversation, I believe. We are working very closely with New York City public schools in both regular clinical placements and alternative certification programs. We have Trans B programs with New York City public schools, the fellows, the collaborative. And then in 2023, in the fall, we submitted to NYSED our first residency program. That is actually 3 residency programs for B2, 16, and 712. Our programs are dual certification, general education, student with disabilities, except adolescent education is just students with disabilities, and we have a concentration in autism. All of these programs, one of the things about Touro is that in the pandemic, everyone went online, and we stayed in that space. The students didn't want to come back into the regular classroom. We did have a mandate from the university to come back to the classroom. So we are still very much online, but we have everything, every modality that you can imagine, we can do it. And I'm saying that because one of the considerations about residencies and apprenticeships is to listen to the partner, right? We're not coming. When we have a phone call or we have a meeting with a prospective partner, the very first question we ask is, what are your needs? What are you looking for? What is your situation? Because if we come to them saying, this is what we have, take it or leave it, then it's not really a productive relationship that we want to build for the long term. And that's one of the messages that we wanted to convey today. Just to get through the general info, we are being in a teacher preparation, but we also have school leadership. And in fact, we have an apprenticeship program in school leadership, thanks to a charter school that got a grant for that. So we are doing for the first time a school leadership apprenticeship program. But we have school counseling, digital and bilingual education, Jewish education, because Touro is a Jewish auspicious institution. And then we certainly have the accelerated pathway from the undergrad major in education to the graduate master's, and here's where Jill will speak about the undergraduate programs at Touro.
Sure. So we have 2 bachelor's degrees in early childhood education and childhood. They're dual cert, so when students graduate, they're eligible for initial certification in general and special ed. In late spring, early summer, we added on the standalone residency for early childhood and childhood. The one for childhood is students with disabilities, all grades, and we have put in for our bachelor's in childhood education to have students with disabilities, all grades as well. I think a really special thing about our program is that we have 5 graduate classes as part of the bachelor's program. 2 of those are the clinical experience courses. So when students graduate with their bachelor's and receive their initial certification, they're almost halfway done with a master's. So they have, as you saw, all the programs we offer at GSE, they have a lot of different pathways they can go along, which I think is really amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have a pathway for non-education majors where they can also take graduate level courses and go into the graduate school. And just last semester, we started the CDA pathway, and we're partnering with the school in Westchester. We have about 75 of their early childhood educators doing the CDA program.
Well, one of the interesting things, and perhaps this is a New York City a very specific situation, is that these programs have been very successful. As you can see, we're not going to go over the numbers there, but there is certainly growth in enrollment thanks to Jill's, because Jill was the brain behind the creation of the programs that she's describing. So
yeah, we had 131 students in fall 2024. We have over 230 this fall.
And these programs are also online.
Yes.
We have a campus in Manhattan, and none of my students go there. They rarely go there. We would love for them to come more often, but we do have a campus in Brooklyn where there is in-person instruction, and I call it the last bastion. There is strong enrollment there, but we live. But it is important then to think about that, because very often our partners ask us, "Do you have classes online?" And we say yes, but. Because very often what happens with a potential partner is that they are very attracted to the online world because it's easier, obviously, right? If we're going to have residents that are in the school all day and then they have to schlep to campus, either in Manhattan or Brooklyn or whatever, for a class for 3 hours, that's tough, right? But we don't want to overplay the online component, because we also want the students to be very engaged. We want them to see each other, to see their faculty. So we're doing all kinds of things. For example, include Zoom sessions, even in online asynchronous courses that are mandatory. That was a huge discussion and debate among the faculty, but we are doing it. And the students, even though in the beginning may not love it, then they appreciate it. But that is a result of a very painstaking conversation with the partners, right? Because very often the partner will say, no, we're not in, no Zoom, no nothing, just, and then we try to engage in conversation with them to see what can work best for their situation. So it's a two-way street, and it's certainly not linear and not a given, but it's, for us, it's been a very hands-on, on-the-job training on building productive and sustainable relationships. This is just to say that we are in the 5 boroughs, and all the little things in colors means that we have people placed there. For the residency program with Empire State, the grant, we have Manhattan, the Bronx, and Brooklyn primarily. But I have to say, we have worked with charter schools for a long time as well. This is well before my and your time. Some of them have also residency programs. But these are the clinical placements in the regular program. So one of the interesting questions in building a relationship is that, as you probably know, we don't have to tell you, every borough is different, right? If you go to the Bronx, it could be a different world from Brooklyn, right? Brooklyn is different, it is heterogeneous. It's not the same thing. It's certainly, the Dumbo area, than deeper in the borough, right? So we have to take all of those aspects into account when we think about can we provide a service to this district or partner. So, I think that we referred to this at the beginning, but we are really interested, and Jill, let me know if you want to add anything there. We're interested in what are the conditions under which these programs can succeed. And this is what we want to share with you and then hear from you. This was just context about the teacher shortage and the reduction in class size. We are really in New York City. Do you have students outside of the city? Or they tend to Long Island? Well, we certainly are. We're sitting in Long Island, and we had a campus. The campus is still there for the university, but yeah, we have a presence there. But primarily, we're talking about New York City. You have heard a lot about this already today, so we don't have to go in detail, I think, into all of this, but there is no apprenticeship without a residency. So the first step is to have the residency program approved by New York State. And when we did it in a little bit of a rush because New York City Public Schools told us, hey, we have this grant called the Empire State Residency Program, but to apply and be eligible, you need to have a registered residency, and the deadline is in a month or something. I'm exaggerating, but and we did, okay, we want to be in this, right? So we did it in the easiest possible way, and I'm being maybe too honest in saying that we took our program and we took out the clinical experience, because the clinical experience in the residency is a year-long, 1,000-hour experience, right? So, and we submitted to NYSE then a slightly modified program that you could do then. They changed that a little bit, but like you did it a little bit differently, right? So, but what we were trying to highlight here is that the most important component for us for the residency is that the coursework is directly applicable to the classroom. So that means there has to be a good extent of co-design with the partner, right? I'll give you a maybe too basic of an example, but in our program, the regular masters, we have the lesson plan, right? And we designed it, and it's a very long lesson plan, and it's required, and it has like all kinds of things, bells and whistles. But very often what happens in a school is that when you're laughing, you know what happens in school, right? They don't use that, right? They just don't use it. So in conversing with the partner, we need to know what are the conditions that they live in, that the student will live in, because if we teach them something that they will see no applicability, then we have an issue, right? So we need to rethink our own pedagogical practices, and that's been a great learning experience for us, because what is most important in preparing a teacher in the residency, that we teach the template that we have for the lesson plan, or that they become flexible enough to be able to quickly adapt and tweak lesson plans, no matter where they're coming from. So that's been a true learning experience for us. These are some reflection points that we wanted to share, or this is partly that and partly where we are. And the first step that represented for us a change in our mindset was to focus on the teachers, right? Not to focus on this is what we are, this is what we offer. And like I was saying earlier, take it or leave it. It's more, what is the context and what can we learn from it? And the only way to do that is to ask them. And then hopefully in the conversation, come to an agreement about what we can live with in terms of flexibility, in terms of content, and so forth. And I was mentioning earlier the expanded role of the residency and apprenticeship in our case for the school leadership program, the undergraduate option. And Jim, do you want to mention the completion, that the bachelor programs can also work as completion programs? so people can come with credits.
Right, so do you mean that they take the 5 graduate level classes as part of the bachelor's degree?
No, well, yes, but also, it's a whole conversation about when we talk with different partners, and the apprenticeship program is for graduate level only, the Empire State is undergrad, but the residency program, the concept could apply to the undergraduate level. And when they talk to us, they may have people that are coming with different numbers of credits. So that's,
Right. So the way that the program would work with the residency is they complete the program as they would, and we already do backwards design, because then in the senior year, they have to leave it to do your traditional student teaching, but it would be the same with residency. But we have a close advising model with them in those last 2 years. We have a lot of, they have to get admitted into the program. Every graduate level class, they have to get an override and get approval. So we're always meeting with them. So we can talk about residency options as well as with our school partners, of course. And so when they come into that last year, they just do the residency instead of the traditional. And they can complete it that way. And then, get the initial and then go on to the professional year and master.
well, yeah, and then it is a huge saving. I did mention in the keynote, no, in the panel, I'm sorry, that about the cost. And that is something that I honestly feel privileged that we can do that, because that is the major constraint that a higher education institution will have to engage in this type of work is the cost. It's the cost structures of the institution. So, but I would argue that higher education institutions have to rethink their business model in this, because at the cost of higher education, if a degree costs more than $20,000, then it's too high for a person that is thinking about a residency program. So that's why we come from the get-go with a concept that we are going to have a discounted price that we can live with, right? So, yeah. We have also experienced with our partners that they have the group that they want to be residents, right, for example. But then they also have the mentor teachers who are experienced and so forth, or they have veterans in the classroom. When they start seeing the work that the residents are doing, they start saying, oh, well, that's a great program. Well, I would like to be in a program like that. And that happened recently. I said, well, maybe we can think about if they are experienced teachers, they have their master's degree, they want to get either a TESOL extension or an advanced degree. They're not included in the memorandum of understanding, right, that determines and governs the relationship, but we can certainly add options to that effect. But we can only do that, again, if the price is right, if the price is right for them. And that's our challenge to deal with. One of the beautiful things about the residency that Jill was suggesting also is that it is a program that is very adaptable to different types of situations, right? For example, one of our charter school partners, they have teachers already working there that they can treat as residents, right? This is not, the funding isn't coming from, certainly not an apprenticeship program. The funding isn't coming from the Department of Labor, and it's not coming from the Empire State grant either. So the school has figured out a way to treat this little group of people, in this case it's not many, as residents. So the model lends itself to many different types of options, depending on the school.
Can I touch on one point right there? I think it's really important. It happened just this summer. New York City Public Schools will allow paraprofessionals to do a residency while staying in their paraprofessional role. So they can continue with their benefits, work towards retirement and all of that. And instead of being paraprofessional, they're resident, but the system pay, everything remains the same.
Well, but that they said yes, but it's just it's painful because I don't know if anyone here with an Empire State residency program. No? Okay. Well, so that program, one of the challenges, and this is why the question of scale is so important and sustainability. And I would love to hear from you what anyone here is thinking about that, because this grant is to pay for residency candidates that will get a $30,000 a year stipend, right? That is taxed, which we didn't know in the beginning, and the guidance didn't know either, right? And on top of that, they need to pay for the program, right? So they're not getting tuition. The grant doesn't allow for that. The grant doesn't allow for the support for the mentor teachers, that they're called TDFs. So the school has to put a certain amount of money for that. So it's a steep, hill that we have to climb. It's a hard sell for paraprofessionals, right? Because in the beginning they were going to have to quit their job, and they're like, why would I do that? If I have my job and benefits. So those are the challenges that we hear from every day. So the paraprofessionals program, it's actually Colleen that a role in that New York City Public School is talking with, the UFT and all of the different players to allow paraprofessionals to do the residency program, but that hasn't been implemented yet. We're talking with them about that. It is true, as they said at different points today, that these programs are a boost to diversity. That is absolutely true by definition. These are our numbers for the residency programs. The numbers at the top are for the residency, I apologize. This is for the regular programs. I forgot to put that 40% are black. I don't know why I left it out. So I did something weird, but maybe I pasted this on top of that, so I apologize. But the numbers in the residency programs are better in terms of diversity than in the regular program. So we can expect, these are in the regular program, this is a report from New York City Public Schools that shows 45% of the new hires for that year, that was last spring, were people of color. But this number can be better with the residency programs. In the first year of the residency program with New York City Public Schools, there's been high retention. We started with a very small number, hence the comment again about scale, because we started with 14 students. 13 got their internship certificate. And just to mention quickly that in the residency program, another of the flexible components is that the residency clinical experience is 1,000 hours, and it's the whole school year. The whole school year, they stay there. But the graduate program can take longer, right? Because if it's 30 credits, then it's a lot. If you compress it, you can, but it's tough, right? So after they get, they complete the clinical 1,000 hours in the school year, they can get their internship certificate. And then they can get a job at the school, right? Assuming that the school wanted them to get a job. And in our case, good results, right? From this group, almost all of them have one left. So it does lead to retention, but that only happens if there's been good relationship building along the way. And that's why we wanted to, this is kind of getting to the point of our conversation. What does make the difference with these types of programs? And Jill, you've been doing the same with the new partners that she's getting in the undergraduate side. So the most important component is ongoing communication. This is a lot of work. It's a lot of meetings, a lot of Zoom meetings, in-person meetings, phone calls on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. So all the parties involved in the effort need to be aware of the sheer amount of time that this will take. Just the conversations, and then learning to listen to what, in our case, the partners have to say. And then this is the other big component, that the content has to be relevant for the context of the school and the district. And you may know more than me that a district can also be heterogeneous. Schools can also vary in how they're teaching things in the same district, right? So we need to keep that in mind when, if imagine a residency where they have a mentor teacher with the resident every day, and then the clinical supervisor coming from the faculty. What is a bad scenario in that model, which is the residency model, right? The clinical supervisor comes and then he says something, or she, that contradicts what the mentor teacher is saying to the resident in the school. That's an actual risk that could happen. So the only way to avoid that is to really be open and frequent in the communications with them, and then between the mentor teacher and the clinical supervisor. And very often they're not used to that. Another important aspect is the gradual release model, it actually is more than just a concept. I didn't bring it, but I would be happy to send it to you by email. It's a detailed plan where every component of the co-teaching is actually spelled out. Because what needs to happen in the residency is that the resident is working with the teacher. You're not going to entrust the resident with the group, or to do teaching on their own, even if the other teacher, the mentor teacher, is there. So there has to be a very planful process that we call the gradual release. And then we also think about how to create spaces for more conversation and feedback with the resident, so that the support that you've been hearing about today all day is real, right? So we have these seminars that are 0 credit seminars. So we don't charge more money. It's not a high stakes work, but it's a place where the students, the residents, and the clinical faculty can work together for the coursework and for the clinical experience. For example, the clinical observations and so forth. You help me with this side, so maybe we can share some of the comments here. It's interesting that even though we need to hear from that particular context and that specific school, some issues are universal or pretty universal. And remember when we were talking about this slide?
Right. So, definitely in New York City public schools, in spite of everything going on in the world around us, they've stayed strong with their culturally responsive sustaining framework and really want to see that implemented in all the schools. That's what everyone needs. With science of reading and the new initiatives with math, everything's driven by data. What are we seeing our students need, and how do we get teachers trained to be able to do these things? So they really want us to know what types of assessments and what types of data they're using in their school, and how can we go ahead and be working with teachers and training on what those things are, so they can come in ready to understand them and use them to drive what it is they do. Always, how to do an IEP. Such a struggle. A real true struggle in schools is writing good IEPs and being able to use them to plan instruction, have fidelity to them. So how can we really support that process as a dual cert program? We really need to be focused on that.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting that the more we can work with different partners in residency and apprenticeship programs, the more we can build on what is needed in the school environments that higher education may or may not be offering in the best possible way. So this is an ongoing work. But residencies will remain central to our approach, even though it's a very, very high investment in time, in resources, and all kinds of investment in terms of convincing everyone of the need to do this type of work, even though there is really no return to investment financially speaking, right? So we're certainly not doing it because of that. We're doing it hoping that we can identify ways with the partners to make it sustainable in the long term. But honestly, right now, that's not clear to me. How sustainable this will be, like, 5 years from now, to be blunt and more than honest. This is sort of important for us to share with you, because this is talking about, if you attended the session with the branch ed folks, the feasibility, what's the word? Readiness to engage in a residency or apprenticeship program for higher education institutions. There are some sine qua non elements that have to be there. One is an MOU, a memorandum of understanding that you can always refer to, that lays out the governance and the pieces, the roles. I'll tell you, there are many names for the mentor teacher, right? Some people call them academic coaches or success coaches or the TDF or these other acronyms that someone mentioned in another session. I never remember them, but it is very important to discuss with the school or the district or the charter school or whoever what that role is. It's interesting to me that I thought everyone knew what they were. No, you have to go over them, time and again, even as they know, or everyone thinks they know what a mentor teacher is and what the role is and isn't in the context of the residency. Just to give a quick example, the mentor teacher and the clinical supervisor really have to be different people, right? And so, that is not clear necessarily to everyone. So there's a reason why we want the triangulation and giving feedback to the resident, right? That is one of the cornerstones of the success of the mentoring experience. But we sometimes have to educate a little bit on that. Data sharing agreements, and we heard about that a lot today. Communication, just even to touch base and see how are you, how are things, what are your candidates telling you, and then building trust is essential. The only way, honestly, Jill, tell me what you think about this, but in my experience, and here, Jill and I are a little different because I've done more of the grad side and she's done the undergrad side of programs and partners. In my case, what has made a key difference with partners has been to focus on their needs. Like, tell us about your school, about your teachers. Who are they, right? What do they need? Because they are typically not homogeneous, right? So we can't just, do the cookie cutter approach with them. That they feel they actually can tell us about their needs and their specific situation has meant a lot to them. What's been your experience in talking with different partners?
So we just have 3 more minutes.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
But it's really very similar. I mean, a lot of times schools come and they just want placements, like student teachers. And then in the conversation, you can share how much more there is to offer and really how much we want to learn from them. With students with disabilities, all grades, we have to redo all of our syllabi. I don't want to do that without talking to schools and knowing what it is that they need. So it's just really we want to work with you is not something that typically happens. Like, New York City Public School came to Touro. We all sat at a table on campus. That felt unheard of. But to think that we can talk and we're all in it together is that feels like a new frontier.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Does anyone have any comment, reaction, or you want to share something from your own experience? Who's here from higher ed? Okay. And the others are from where? Schools? Districts?
Nonprofits and CBOs, so I'm really interested to hear, I've been waiting to hear the word. If you're doing that work with the nonprofits and CBOs, because the 4410 in New York City is the way preschool
In terms of partnerships or seeking?
Yeah, like,
Okay.
you're working.
We haven't.
toward
I
that,
haven't.
but
Have you?
not-
No, but we're open to
Yeah.
it. We don't have limitations. We can partner.
Because
with
there
really-
are other, besides charter schools and public schools, the CBOs are a huge part of the, especially low childhood.
That sounds great. We haven't, we are talking with some people about other things, but not that, so that would be great. I'm
Mr. CDA is that sort of
Not the
situation.
CBO, right, we don't want-
No, I know, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying, partnerships.
I honestly don't know a lot about the work that the publics are doing. I know certainly the great work that SUNY and CUNY are doing, SUNY and the role in teacher preparation and apprenticeships. I would like to learn more from them, from where we stand as a nonprofit. One thing I can say with confidence is that we have a lot of freedom in terms of how we envision the work that we're doing with the partners. Of course, within the regulation of New York State, right, in terms of what's a residency, what's an apprenticeship, but we can be creative. And if people are willing to sit at the table and talk about that, then I think we can have a good conversation going. So we would be happy to. Oh, I think I put our contact info. If anyone wants to. Oh no, yes, it's right there. If you want to copy our email, or you can find us, on our website. I have business cards. Even if you want to just talk about how you're doing things, it would be great to have opportunities for that. I think one of the beautiful things about this meeting today, Dana, is that we're bringing people together, right, to have important conversations and sharing experiences. So we would be happy to do anything that is helpful to continue that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.